Please help me welcome Joe Schmidt.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. There may be a few of you who have ties from the Twin Cities that might recognize me as the sports guy on Channel 5. For those of you who don't, you are looking at a living, breathing, broadcasting legend in Minnesota. I'm lying. If you saw my ratings, you know I was lying. As a matter of fact, I'm in the witness protection program. They put me on Channel 5 so nobody would see me. My bosses hate that joke. You know, I've got the best job in the world, but I'm here to tell you I got the toughest job in the world. I go to games, and after the games, I have to go into a dirty, smelly, stinky locker room and interview half-naked men and get them to say something intelligent. That's a tough job. My favorite, I was interviewing a football player, a freshman in college. The very first time he touched a ball in a game, he went 100 yards for a touchdown. So afterwards, we asked him, describe what happened. His eyes are as big as saucers, and he says, it was great. I got the ball on the goal line. I ran to about the 20-yard line. I saw a big hole up the side. I ran as hard as I could, and then my instincts kicked in. It was like running from the cops. The truth is, we all operate by our instincts, and those instincts lead to actions, and those actions either have a positive impact on the world around us or a negative impact on the world around us. I like to call that our silent impact. You see, everything we do, everything we say, how we act, how we react, how we behave, what our attitude is, what our body language is, we are having an impact and making an influence. And what we all really need to do is be aware of it and wake up and realize that we make our biggest impressions when we're not trying to be impressive. Let me ask you a question. If there were a going away party at your office today, who would the most people show up for? That is a person of influence. That person is golden. We did research on 10 companies, small, medium, and as large as Target, looking for that person of influence and trying to find out what they all had in common. Now, we found that person in some unique places. It wasn't always the person who sits in the corner office. Sometimes it was the person who cleans the corner office. But whoever that person of influence was, they all had three things in common. And I like to call them the 3 Ps. Purpose, persistence, and passion. The 3 Ps, purpose, persistence, and passion. They understood the power of their purpose. They aligned their actions with their values, and they were great team players. They understood the power of their persistence. They were persistently positive, they were persistent in their preparation, and they persistently always went above and beyond the call of duty. And they understood the power of their passion. They were the heart and soul of the operation, and they really, really cared. Think about people you like to be around. They are passionate people. I married my wife because she's the most passionate person I know. Just the other night I come home from work and she's sitting with a big glass of wine and she says, I love you. I don't know how I would have made it all these years without you. And I said, well, honey, I love you too, but are you sure that's not the wine talking? And she said, yes, I'm sure. I was talking to the wine. We celebrate our 24th anniversary on Saturday. And then, yeah, thank you. And like I always say, we've been happily married for 15 years. Purpose, persistence, and passion. I'm going to talk about purpose today. Many of you know about Joe Mauer, right? The Minnesota Twins catcher. He played in his 6th All-Star game just on Tuesday night. One of the great baseball players of all time. 12 years ago, Joe was going to high school at Creighton-Durham Hall High School in St. Paul, Minnesota. And every day after his 4th hour class, Joe was going to lunch. And he walked a special needs kid to lunch. His name was Mike Hawley, and he was a blind kid. And he sat him down at his lunch table. Now, Joe was the BMOC at Creighton, the big man on campus. And wherever Joe sat in that lunchroom was the cool table. Joe invited Mike Hawley to that table every day. And I wondered, what impact did that have on Mike's life? And what impact did it have on other people around him? So I put my reporter's cap on and I called Mike just within the last 6 months. And I asked Mike to tell me about it. And he said it was great. He said, Joe opened doors for me. I never had a friend who was an athlete. All of a sudden, I had a bunch of friends who were athletes. And all of a sudden, I was part of the team. And he said, he told me that today he's Joe Mauer's biggest fan in baseball. He's a big baseball fan and loves Joe Mauer. But no matter what Joe Mauer does in the baseball field, he'll always think more of Joe as a person, as a better person. Joe had a silent impact on Mike, but then I got to thinking, what about the other kids at that table? So I found 4 of the kids who sat at that table. And they all said that Joe broke down barriers. Because all of a sudden, this kid who maybe would have been ignored, shunned, and maybe even bullied, was all of a sudden one of us. And they said that Joe would walk the kid to his next class in 5th hour after lunch. And he said by the end of the first semester, they were all taking turns walking Mike to his next class. One of the guys told me, he said, Wednesday was pizza day at Cretin-Durham Hall. And he said, invariably, Mike would eat pizza, get crumbs on his uniform. Sometimes he'd have pizza sauce on his chin and on his cheek. Joe would nonchalantly pick up a napkin, wipe him off, clean him off, and get him ready for the next class. He said by the end of the year, we were all doing that. These are high school kids. There is not a more selfish creature on God's green earth. But Joe is having a silent impact. We make our biggest impressions when we're not trying to be impressive. That's what silent impact is all about. His purpose, he had aligned his actions with his values. That equals integrity, and that equals an impact. And that impact, that influence, that is real, it's profound, it's contagious, and it's lasting. I was having lunch with a friend of mine, Sam Richter. You just heard him speak a little bit ago. And I was telling Sam about my theory on silent impact, and that I was writing a book on it, and that I was getting these stories, and I was doing research on it. And 2 days after the lunch, Sam called me up and he said, Joe, you're one of the most handsome guys I know, and certainly the smartest. Sam didn't say that. I just want to make sure he's listening. Okay. Sam said, Joe, for 2 days I've been thinking about silent impact. I want to tell you a story. And Sam says, recently a girl I went to high school contacted me. And she said, Sam, you probably don't remember me, but I certainly remember you. I was an insecure, unpopular freshman. You were a senior and the star of the high school football team. And one day I was getting bullied by my locker. You saw what was happening and you came over and you told that guy to knock it off, and if he ever did it again, he was going to have to deal with you, Sam Richter. And then you told me, he said, if he comes back again, you let me know. Sam, I want to let you know something. You saved my life that day 25 years ago. I was going to go home and swallow a bottle of sleeping pills and end it all. I needed something to stop the pain. We make our biggest impressions when we're not trying to be impressive. Integrity is all about aligning your actions with your values. The girl's name is Kristen. I talked to her recently. She's now a radio personality in Minnesota. And she told me she just felt she had to do it. She had to thank Sam. It's called the second thank you. Who in your life has had an impact, an influence on you that helped you when you were down, gave you the push you needed? Go back and thank them. Go back and thank them. You'll make their day. Heck, you'll make their year. And if they don't happen to be around, you know what? Find a brother or a sister or a son or a daughter and tell them how great that person was in your life. You will have an amazing impact on there. Sam Richter is on Kristen's Mount Rushmore of influence. Who's on your Mount Rushmore of influence, and why are they there? And whose Mount Rushmore of influence are you on? And how do you get to be on more people's Mount Rushmore of influence? It's called silent impact, but they are hearing your message loud and clear. I want to take a moment to thank Holly for having us here. Holly's booked me now for 4 years. If you haven't worked with Holly yet, she does a great job of aligning the right speaker with the right event. I haven't had a dog yet. And also, I've also do quite a bit of emceeing. I've just got done emceeing a national event, so I do a little bit of that too. And I play the bass drum. No. So go out there and get yourself on somebody's Mount Rushmore. Thank you very much.